Hey guys, Julian here. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to make complex future garage drums in the style of burial and Djrum, or drum. I'm still not entirely sure how to pronounce that one. As usual, you get the project file and samples from this video in the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because they will be available as always. And yeah, let's get started. The first layer that I have here is this one, which is called Shaking Random Objects. It sounds like this. And so the reason why this is called shaking random objects is because that's what it's a recording of. Basically, I was making this beat and I had the main things, like all of this stuff. But it felt like it needed something kind of random and organic. So what I did was I literally just grabbed like a bunch of random stuff that was on my desk. Like I have some chapstick here, a lighter, and some bubbles. Like I just grabbed that like just random stuff like that and just recorded myself shaking, kind of like that. And then what I did was, while I was recording it, I was listening to the beat in some headphones, so I could kind of like play it off of what the rest of the drums were doing. If that makes any sense. So what this does is it kind of creates like that random sort of percussion you hear in the background of a lot of like burials tracks. It's not really like random, but a lot of times they'll have like some percussion in there that's kind of like very up front, and then some that's kind of in the background. This is more of like the in the background kind of like ear candy stuff, but this is a really really good way to do that. Like it would be very hard to just sit there and try to program out, especially if you were doing like a full song out of this, to try to program like percussion that sounds kind of random and organic like that. But yeah, by having this thing, it's just a nice way to like kind of generate something that sounds, still has that kind of vibe and still has that kind of sound, but it's not so like intense. Like you just kind of record this and it's pretty cool. It sounds good. So then for processing on that, I have it sidechained to the kick with this compressor because like in some places it felt like it was a little bit off of the groove. With these kind of things, sometimes they can sound like they're like not really a part of the track, you know? But by compressing or side chaining it to the kick, it really helps to like make it fit into the groove and make it sound like it's really like a part of it. And then after that, I just have an EQ8 where I cut out the low end and then I filtered out the high end a bit. So here's what it sounds like with no filtering. So you can hear there's kind of a lot of low end in there, and the high end wasn't really the best for this style, so I just filtered off the very high highs. So you can hear it's like more in the like not the mid range, but not like the super high end, and then I cut out the low end to clean that up. So that's that layer. And the next thing we have here is a shaker loop, which sounds like this. This is kind of background percussion as well. Basically what it is I took this shaker loop and then I set it on beats mode. And then what I did is in beats mode, if you set this to preserve transients, which is what it's on by default, and then set this to an arrow, you can use this little knob here, this little dial, whatever you want to call it, basically like a transient shaper. Like you can make the percussion a lot tighter. It will sort of, it goes from like this to like that. So you can hear, like I said, it's becoming a lot tighter, a lot more focused. And yeah, that was basically just how I did this. And then after that, I have that going through a bit of erosion to kind of make it more like grounded and like gritty sounding. And then after that, I just have a compressor side chaining it to the kicks. Similar thing to that like random objects layer. It just kind of, was getting a little bit out of hand, or a little bit out of control. So I wanted to keep it back like under the groove and kind of like with the rest of the drums. So this is kind of similar to that last one. It's just meant to be like some background percussion. It adds something organic with the rest of the program drums. And yeah, that's pretty much it for that layer. Next thing I have here are these hi-hats, which sound like this. So what these are is they're two hi-hats layered together. This one and this one. So we have more of like a synthy, kind of like bright hi-hat, which has a bit of reverb on it. And then I have this kind of more like grungy sounding, like hip-hop style, like sampled kind of hi-hat. And then on the sampled hi-hat, it's playing this little pattern where you can hear at the end of every, or at the beginning of every 2 bars, it has this little extra accent note. It's just kind of like a small thing to differentiate it from the other hi-hat. I actually noticed kind of a funny trick is that when you have something like this in your hi-hat and then you have like 2 of them layered together, like I mean if you only have one of the hi-hats doing this little thing, you hear this one a lot more when they're playing at the same time. Like if I just play them together without that note, it sounds like one thing, but when I add that, you can kind of like discern the space between them a little bit more. So definitely kind of a cool technique, and it also just adds, like some extra swing to the beat. But yeah, so these are just kind of playing on the upbeats. These are meant to be like, if this percussion is supposed to be kind of like random and organic, these are meant to be really just solid, like straightforward, just clean, simple on the beat to kind of contrast that. So the next thing we have here are these rim shots, which sound like this. So basically, it's 2 rim shots, this one, and then this one. The first one is kind of like the main one. It just kind of, yeah, sounds like that. I took this rim shot, and what I did was I just pitched it down a bit. I put it down -2 semitones, and then I filtered off some of that high end as well to kind of clean it up a bit and give it like a darker sound. Honestly, like with Burial's drums, and really like with any like future garage drums in general, usually like the darker kind of rim shots are what you would want to go for. So like filtering off a bit of high end is a good way to achieve that, and just kind of make it more like, I keep using this term, but like grounded sounding. And then on the second one, what we have is same thing. It's kind of like this nice rim shot. It's very punchy. And then I'm just putting in a simpler here, and I pitched it down -5. And then this one, I put a bandpass filter on. So what the bandpass does is, I mean, from what you can hear, it's cutting out all the high end, but that's how you get those kind of like mid-rangey rim shots. I've heard these a lot in Burial's tracks and in DJ Rum's and Drums DJ Rum. Still don't know how to say that. But yeah, like I've heard this in a ton of future garage tracks, these kind of like filtered rim shots, and a lot of people have actually asked me how to get these as well. And this is all it is. You just kind of filter it. And then when you have a beat where you have both this filtered one and like the main one playing, the contrast between them makes them kind of like stand out a lot more, if that makes any sense. Like if you just had this one, you would just say, oh, that's what the rim shot sounds like. But because you have this other one, which is a lot more like full bodied, it kind of makes that filtered one sound a lot more. I mean, it just kind of makes it stand out a lot more. So those are the rim shots. And the only other thing I'll say is like the pattern. Like this second little accent one you can hear is just playing that one note there to kind of like give it more groove. But then on this one, you can hear I have like that sort of Burial Archangel style pattern where it's like on the 2 and then on the 16th note before the 4. And then at the end here, I've also added like that extra little thing where I move this back a little bit. That just kind of gives it more groove, because you can hear like the kick is playing kind of the same pattern the whole time. But then having that extra little like thing where the snare is changing up there or the rim shot is changing kind of gives the groove a different feel, and not that it throws you off, but like it makes you not notice that the kick is playing the same thing, I guess, if that makes any sense. But you still get like the really solid groove that you get from that kick pattern. So those are the rim shots. The next thing that we have here is the kick, which sounds like this. So this kick is really simple. It's just kind of like a nice punchy, sort of like low kick. I don't have any processing on it. I really didn't need any, and especially like with this style, you really just want like a punchy kind of kick that's gonna cut through your mix and like just kind of not do too much. Like you don't want it to be too much in your face. So that was kind of what I went for here. Just like a stubby kind of like, yeah, deeper kick. The one thing I will say is like it's really just all about sample selection. And with this style of stuff, I would recommend looking through like some kind of like hip hop style drums, like maybe some old school 90s type like vinyl drums, or even you can honestly probably get away with just using like a trap kick for this as well. Like that's not really too different from a trap kick, and I would definitely use this kick in a trap beat as well. So like, just any kind of like short thumpy kick like that is really what you want. So then the next thing that I have here is actually a bass. I have some music in here. You heard it in the intro. I wanted to put some stuff in here to kind of show you like how the drums work with the music, if that makes any sense. So this bass is a really good example of that. Here's the bass. So it's just kind of like a standard reese bass. I've got analog, 2 saw waves, detune, going into a low pass filter, a bit of saturation, nothing too crazy there. But you can hear this is really kind of important for the groove. If you listen to the track, when we have like the change snare pattern there, like I showed you, combined with the bass changing to this note here after staying on one note for 2 bars there over this time, it kind of like it's sort of like it's not like a fill like a drum fill, but it's kind of like going into the next part a lot more smoothly versus if we just had the bass playing just this note the whole time. It still is kind of, giving you that fill vibe because of the drums changing up there, but definitely having the bass kind of play with what the drums are doing is a really, really good technique with the style because it's all about having that like really tight kind of rhythm and having everything kind of like working together and being this really tight knit unit, if that makes any sense. So yeah, doing stuff like that with the bass and with other melodic stuff as well, where it's kind of like playing off of what the drums are doing is really helpful. So that's really mostly it with the bass. The next thing I have here is the string, which sounds like this. And yeah, this is pretty much just like a kind of straightforward Burial Future Garage style like string sample thing. I basically took this, some recording of a string I had sampled, and it was just like on my hard drive. And what I did was I put it into this granulator here. The granulator, it's a Max for Live device. It's a granular synth. I'm gonna put it in the description. It's free to download. And if you have Ableton 10 or if you have Ableton any other version and you have Max for Live, you should be able to use it. But yeah, basically what a granular synth does is it just plays back a sample like a sampler would. But the difference between this and a sampler is a sampler would just play from start to finish, like it would just play through the sample and that's that. What a granular synth does is it plays like different parts of the sample. So you can see that yellow line that's like moving around, that's it jumping around the sample and grabbing different parts. And what you can use this to do, and what I use it for here is, like if you have a short sample like this that has like a cool texture that you want to turn into something melodic, you can just put it into this and it essentially just makes an endless loop of that isn't just going to sound like if you just took it and put it on an audio track, or yeah, like it's not going to sound like, if you just did this, like just duplicate it over a bunch of times. It's going to sound really smooth and kind of seamless and like, yeah, just better really. So then that's pretty much it inside of there. Then after that, I just have a bit of reverb, and then I have an EQ8 cutting out the low end. The notes as well are really nothing too crazy. They're just kind of playing this really simple 3-note thing. It's just really playing off of what the bass is doing. And yeah, then the last thing that we have here are these 2 layers of vinyl dirt, which sound like this. So I have 2 layers here. One that's like a little bit more crispy and kind of like clicky. And then this one, which is more solid and kind of like, I guess, flat, you would say. It's a lot less dynamic. It's just kind of like a long one. So that's kind of like a key here is layering these 2 together. Yeah, I just want to layer them together to kind of get the best of both. Like this one was too clicky to be the main one because it doesn't have like that noise that just plays throughout the track. It just kind of has those clicks coming in and out here and there. But then this one is a little bit flat, but that's really good for like a background layer to that first one. So for the first one we've got here is I have this sample. I'll show it to you. Yeah, that, and then I just put it into a granulator, and then similar to that string, I'm kind of just using the granular synth here to just make like an endless loop. Like it's just kind of making this so you can play it for as long as you wanted. And it's just gonna keep generating like basically a new sound. That's really cool. But then after that, I just have an EQ8 cutting out some low end and then cutting out a bit of high end as well to kind of focus on like that darker aspect of it. It's kind of similar to with the rim shot where I wasn't trying to just completely low pass it and make it super like deep and dark sounding, I guess, but I did want to take off some of that high end just to make it a little bit darker. Then on the second one, I actually have no processing. Yeah, this one's really more just, like I said, for that like solid, flat kind of noise. In the background, just kind of even out the other one. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I just wanted to show you guys some techniques I picked up on listening to Djrum. Still have no idea how to say that. 3rd time in this video. And Burial's music. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today, guys. Make sure to let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. Once again, you get the project file and samples from this video in the description. If you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because they will be available as always. Thank you again, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with another tutorial.